Hollywood's glitz hides dark secrets. A scream rips through a cursed film's premiere. Lord Edgware, studio king, stabbed dead with a prop knife. Hercule Poirot hunts the truth among lying stars, jealous lovers, and a writer with a deadly script. Was it Jane craving freedom? Brian, her lover with secrets? Or Elena, whose story mirrors the crime? Ghosts, clues, and betrayal haunt the foggy sets. Who's the killer? What's the twist? Step into danger.
Chapter 1: Spotlights and Suspicions. The Pacific Ocean stretched like a vast, shimmering sapphire under the relentless California sun as the SS Normandy docked at the port of Los Angeles. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with his impeccably waxed mustache and a penchant for order in a chaotic world, stepped onto the bustling pier. The air was thick with the salty tang of sea spray, mingled with the faint, exotic aroma of eucalyptus trees swaying in the breeze. It was a far cry from the misty Thames or the cobbled streets of Brussels, but Poirot had been lured across the Atlantic by a telegram from an old acquaintance, a Hollywood producer who promised intrigue amid the glamour. Mon Dieu! Poirot murmured to himself, adjusting his Homburg hat against the glare. This land of eternal summer, where even the shadows seem scripted. He hailed a sleek black Packard taxi, its chrome gleaming like a movie star's smile, and directed the driver to the Beverly Hills Hotel. As the car wound through palm-lined avenues, past sprawling estates guarded by wrought iron gates, Poirot's sharp eyes absorbed the spectacle. Billboards touting the latest talkies, young hopefuls clutching scripts like talismans, and the distant haze of the Hollywood Hills, where dreams were manufactured on celluloid. Upon arriving at the hotel, a pink stucco palace nestled amid manicured gardens, Poirot was shown to his bungalow suite. It was a haven of luxury. Plush velvet armchairs, a crystal decanter of cognac, and French doors opening to a private patio overlooking the pool. But rest was not on his agenda. No sooner had he unpacked his meticulously folded shirts than a knock echoed at the door. His valet, Georges, opened it to reveal a vision in emerald silk, Jane Wilkinson, the reigning queen of the silver screen, her platinum curls cascading like waves of moonlight, her eyes a stormy violet that could melt steel. "Monsieur Poirot," she exclaimed, sweeping into the room with the grace of a panther in heels. "I've heard so much about you from dear old Basil at the studio. You're the man who unravels knots that even Whodunit couldn't escape." She extended a gloved hand adorned with a diamond the size of a quail's egg, and Poirot bowed slightly, kissing the air above her knuckles. "Mademoiselle Wilkinson, or should I say Lady Edgware? It is an honor. But pray, what brings such a luminary to my humble abode so soon after my arrival?" Jane sank into an armchair, crossing her legs with a rustle of silk that seemed to echo her inner turmoil. "Call me Jane, darling. Titles are for stuffy old drawing rooms back in England. And as for my husband, Lord Edgware, well, that's precisely why I'm here." She dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, though her expression remained flawlessly composed, as if rehearsed in front of a mirror. "I need your help, Poirot. I want a divorce, quick and quiet, without the scandal sheets turning it into a circus. Ronald, that's Lord Edgware to you, is a brute, a tyrant who clips my wings while he flits about with his own flock of floozies." Poirot tilted his head, his green eyes narrowing like a cat's in the hunt. "And why, mademoiselle, do you believe I can assist in such a domestic matter? I am a detective, not a solicitor." "Because he's refusing to let me go." She leaned forward, her perfume a heady blend of jasmine and ambition wafting toward him. He says he'll fight it tooth and nail, drag my name through the mud. But Basil tells me you're a wizard with secrets, that you can find leverage where others see only locked doors. Please, Poirot, say you'll help, for a damsel in distress." There was a pause, filled only by the distant laughter of swimmers at the pool. Poirot stroked his moustache thoughtfully. "Very well, mademoiselle. I shall make inquiries. But first, tell me more of this Lord Edgware. What manner of man is he?" Jane's lips curved into a wry smile. A relic from the old world, transplanted here like a thorny rosebush. He owns half the studios in town, produces those dreary historical epics that bore everyone to tears. But he's got a temper like a rattlesnake. Cross him and he strikes without warning. Last week he fired an entire crew because the lighting didn't flatter his latest ingenue. As she spoke, Poirot noted the subtle tremor in her voice, the way her fingers toyed with the hem of her glove. Was it genuine fear, or the artistry of an actress who could summon tears on cue? Before he could probe further, Jane glanced at her wristwatch, a delicate Cartier piece. "Oh heavens, the gala! Basil is throwing a shindig at the studio tonight to unveil his new horror picture. You must come. It's black tie, champagne fountains, the works. Perhaps you can corner Ronald there and work your magic." Poirot acquiesced with a nod. "It would be my pleasure. Until this evening, then." After Jane departed in a swirl of silk and secrets, Poirot spent the afternoon acclimatizing to his new surroundings. He strolled the hotel grounds, observing the parade of celebrities, a lanky comedian practicing pratfalls by the fountain, a sultry chanteuse sipping martinis under a striped umbrella. Georges prepared his evening attire, a crisp tuxedo with a gardenia in the lapel, while Poirot pondered Jane's plea. Divorce in Hollywood was as common as palm trees, yet something in her urgency gnawed at him like a misplaced puzzle piece. As dusk painted the sky in hues of lavender and gold, Poirot arrived at Paragon Studios, a sprawling complex of sound stages and bungalows guarded by a massive archway emblazoned with the studio's lion emblem. The gala was in full swing. Searchlights sliced through the night, casting ethereal beams that danced like fireflies on steroids. A red carpet unfurled before him, flanked by photographers whose flashbulbs popped like gunfire. Poirot navigated the throng with his characteristic poise, nodding to admirers who whispered his name in awe. Inside the main pavilion, a cavernous space transformed into a decadent ballroom, crystal chandeliers twinkled overhead, reflecting off marble floors polished to a mirror sheen. Waiters in white jackets circulated with trays of caviar canapés and bubbling flutes of Veuve Clicquot. The air buzzed with laughter, the clink of glasses, and the strains of a jazz orchestra playing a sultry rendition of Stardust. Celebrities mingled like exotic birds, a dashing aviator hero regaling a cluster of starlets with tales of transatlantic flights, a rotund producer puffing a cigar while negotiating deals in hushed tones.
Jane spotted him immediately and glided over, her gown a cascade of silver sequins that caught the light like 1,000 tiny mirrors. "Poirot, you look divine. Come, meet the gang." She linked arms with him, steering him toward a knot of revelers. First was Basil Thorne, the producer who'd summoned Poirot, a jovial bear of a man with a booming laugh and a handshake like a vice. "Hercule, old chap, glad you made it. This town's a viper's nest, but with you here we'll sort out any bites." Next came a cluster of up-and-comers, a fresh-faced ingenue named Lila Voss, her eyes wide with ambition, a grizzled cinematographer boasting about his innovative lens filters, and a script doctor quipping about rewriting history for the screen. But Poirot's attention wandered, drawn to the edges of the room where shadows lingered. Amidst the gaiety, he sensed undercurrents. Jealous glances whispered asides the subtle power plays of an industry built on illusions. Then, across the room, he saw him, Lord Edgware, Ronald Carstairs by birth, elevated to nobility through a fortuitous marriage back in England. He was a tall, imposing figure, with a hawkish nose and steel-grey hair slicked back like a villain from one of his own films. Dressed in a tailored tuxedo, he held court near the bar, his voice a clipped British bark as he dismissed a phoning assistant. Jane tensed beside Poirot, her grip tightening on his arm. There he is, the ogre himself. Before Poirot could approach, a commotion stirred near the entrance. A telegram boy, cap askew and face flushed, pushed through the crowd, weaving between gowns and tails. "Urgent wire for Monsieur Poirot," he called, thrusting the envelope into the detective's hands. Poirot opened it with precise fingers, his expression unchanging as he read. "Detective Poirot, stop your meddling in my affairs is unwelcome. Stop. Jane's fancies are her own. Stop. Stay out or regret it. Stop. Edgware." A chill rippled through the air, though the party raged on oblivious. Jane's eyes widened in feigned surprise. "What does it say? Is it from him?" Poirot folded the paper neatly. "A warning, mademoiselle, from your husband, mocking my involvement before it has even begun." As the orchestra struck up a foxtrot, couples swirled on to the dance floor, their laughter a counterpoint to the telegram's menace. But Poirot's gaze sharpened, scanning the room anew. There, in the periphery, half hidden by a potted palm, a shadowy figure lingered, cloaked in a dark overcoat despite the warmth. The man, or was it a woman, the build was ambiguous, darted glances toward Edgware, then melted into the crowd like smoke from a cigarette. Poirot moved to pursue, but a surge of dancers blocked his path, and by the time he extricated himself, the figure had vanished through a side door leading to the sound stages. "Curious," Poirot muttered. "A foreshadowing, perhaps, of darker acts to come." The evening wore on, a whirlwind of toasts and tales. Daisel regaled Poirot with stories of on-set mishaps. A leading lady's wardrobe malfunctioned during a sword-fighting scene, a director's meltdown over budget overruns. Jane, ever the hostess, introduced him to more luminaries, a composer whose scores evoked the thrill of the unknown, a makeup artist who could transform faces into monsters with a brushstroke. But Poirot's attention wandered, drawn to the edges of the room where shadows lingered. Amidst the gaiety, he sensed undercurrents, jealous glances, whispered asides, the subtle power plays of an industry built on illusions. As midnight approached, the party reached its zenith with fireworks display over the studio lot. Bursts of color illuminated the night. Crimson reds, emerald greens, golden yellows, mirroring the crimson carpet underfoot, which now seemed ominously prophetic. Poirot excused himself from a conversation about the merits of sound versus silent films and stepped onto a balcony overlooking the grounds. The cool night air carried the scent of night-blooming jasmine, a soothing balm after the indoor frenzy. Savoring a moment of solitude, he lit a slim cigarette, the smoke curling lazily upward. Ah, California! A place where the sun never sets on secrets. The telegram crinkled in his pocket, a reminder that his holiday had morphed into something more intricate. Jane's tears, Edgware's threat, the elusive shadow, all threads in a tapestry yet to be woven. But for now, as the fireworks faded and the guests began to drift home in their limousines, Poirot allowed himself a rare indulgence, a sense of calm. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent to human dramas, and the distant hum of the city lulled him. Little did he know the reel of fate had already begun to unspool, pulling him inexorably toward the horrors lurking in the spotlight's glare. But in that fleeting tranquility, Poirot found satisfaction. A puzzle presented, his mind already at work dissecting it. The night ended not with a bang, but with the quiet click of a door closing on possibilities, leaving him refreshed for whatever dawn might bring.
Chapter 2. The Dagger in the Dark. The blood moon hung low over the Hollywood hills like a swollen lantern, casting an eerie crimson glow on the winding roads that snaked up to Lord Edgware's secluded bungalow. Perched on a cliffside overlook, the estate was a monument to excess. White stucco walls veined with ivy, a sprawling veranda dotted with Grecian urns overflowing with night-scented orchids, and a pool that shimmered like a sheet of molten rubies under the lunar light. Inside, the air was thick with the residue of a solitary evening, cigar smoke lingering from Edgware's last puff, the faint chime of a grandfather clock marking the witching hour. Edgware himself, Ronald Carstairs, lounged in his study, a cavernous room lined with mahogany bookshelves groaning under leather-bound scripts and antique tomes on Elizabethan drama. He was a man forged in the fires of old-world aristocracy, his face etched with lines of disdain, his silk robe draped over broad shoulders that spoke of polo matches long past. A tumbler of aged Scotch balanced on the arm of his leather wing-back chair as he pored over a stack of production ledgers, his pen slashing red ink across budget overruns. "Damned fools," he growled to the empty room, "thinking they can bleed me dry for their frivolous effects." Outside, the wind whispered through the eucalyptus groves, carrying the distant howl of coyotes prowling the canyons. Edgware glanced up, his eyes narrowing at a flicker of movement beyond the French doors. Perhaps a servant, or one of those infernal paparazzi skulking for a scoop. He dismissed it with a snort, returning to his figures. But the night had other plans. A soft creak echoed from the hallway, the doorknob turning with glacial slowness. Edgware's head snapped up. "Who's there? Basil, is that you with another beggar's plea?" No answer came, only the rustle of fabric and the glint of moonlight on metal. A propped knife, pilfered from the set of the Phantom's Curse, its blade etched with faux runes for cinematic flair. The intruder stepped into the lamplight, face obscured by shadow, hand steady as stone. Edgware rose, his tumbler shattering on the Persian rug, amber liquid pooling like blood. "You! What madness is this?" His voice cracked, a rare fracture in his armored composure. The knife flashed, a swift arc that pierced silk and flesh with surgical precision. Edgware gasped, clutching at the hilt protruding from his chest, his eyes bulging in disbelief. He staggered back, knocking over an inkwell that spilled across the desk in black rivulets, mingling with the first drops of real crimson. Papers fluttered like dying birds as he collapsed into his chair, the room a frozen diorama of downfall. Shattered glass, smeared ledgers, and the Lord's final gurgling breath echoing into silence. Miles away, in the heart of the city, Hercule Poirot stirred from a light slumber in his Beverly Hills bungalow. The echoes of the gala still danced in his mind, the telegram's sting, the elusive shadow, but sleep had claimed him briefly. An insistent pounding at the door jolted him awake. Georges, ever vigilant, answered it to reveal a disheveled police sergeant, badge gleaming under the porch light. "Monsieur Poirot, Inspector Curtis from LAPD. We've got a situation up at Edgware's place. Word is you're acquainted with the family. Thought you might want in on this." Poirot dressed swiftly, his mind racing like a well-oiled machine. "A situation, you say? Of what nature?" The sergeant shifted uncomfortably. "Murder, sir. Brutal one. Stabbed with some fancy knife. The wife's been notified. She's raising hell downtown claiming she's innocent as a lamb." The drive up the hills was a blur of hairpin turns and flashing sirens, the blood moon now dipping toward the horizon like a guilty witness. Poirot arrived to a scene straight from a noir thriller. Patrol cars barricading the drive, floodlights bathing the bungalow in harsh white, reporters cordoned off behind yellow tape, their notebooks hungry for scandal. Inside, the study was cordoned with chalk outlines and evidence markers. Edgware's body slumped in the chair, the prop knife still embedded, his face frozen in eternal surprise. Inspector Curtis, a burly man with a mustache rivaling Poirot's own, greeted him with a nod. "Gruesome, ain't it? Time of death around midnight, give or take. No forced entry. Looks like he knew the killer. Door was unlocked, servants' quarters empty for the night off." Poirot circled the room methodically, his patent leather shoes silent on the rug. He noted the spilled ink forming abstract patterns, the ledger open to a page detailing cuts to the horror film's budget, names slashed through with venom, directors, actors, crew. "This knife," he mused, peering at it without touching, "is it from the studio, no? A relic of make-believe turned instrument of truth." Curtis grunted. "Yeah, confirmed by the props guy we dragged in. Missing from the lot since yesterday. Prints are smudged. Gloves, probably." As Poilon knelt to examine the shattered tumbler, a commotion erupted from the foyer. Jane Wilkinson burst in, flanked by two officers, her evening gown from the gala now rumpled, mascara streaking her cheeks like war paint. "Ronald! Oh, God, no!" She lunged toward the body, but Curtis intercepted her gently. "Easy, Lady Edgware. We're still processing the scene." She whirled on him, eyes blazing. "You think I did this? Me! I was across town at a charity auction for orphaned starlets. Dozens of witnesses. Ask the mayor. He bid on my donated tiara himself." Poirot stepped forward, his voice a soothing balm. "Mademoiselle Jane, my condolences. But tell me, when did you last speak with your husband?" She dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. "Yesterday afternoon. He called, ranting about the divorce papers I'd sent over. Said he'd burn them before letting me go free. But I swear, Poirot, I was bidding on vintage furs when this happened." Before Poirot could reply, another figure emerged from the shadows of the hallway. Brian Martin, the brooding leading actor from the studio, his chiseled jaw set in grim determination. He wore a rumpled trench coat over his tuxedo shirt, eyes bloodshot as if from a sleepless vigil. "Jane, I came as soon as I heard. The radio's buzzing about it already." Jane leaned into him briefly, then pulled away, aware of prying eyes. "Brian, darling, it's awful. They think I—" Brian turned to Poirot, his gaze intense like an actor delivering a monologue. "Monsieur, I've worked with Edgware on 3 pictures. He was a shark in a suit, chewed up careers for sport. But murder, that's not Jane's style. She's all fire, no follow-through." Poirot arched an eyebrow. "And you, Monsieur Martin, where were you under this sanguine moon?" Brian paced the fringes of the room, his footsteps measured, as if rehearsing blocking for a scene. Rehearsing lines in my trailer on the lot. Alone, unfortunately. But the night guard can vouch I didn't leave until the call came in. As the interrogation unfolded, Poirot's attention drifted to subtler clues. He donned gloves provided by Curtis and sifted through the desk drawers. A hidden compartment revealed love letters, not to Jane, but to a mysterious Evelyn, scented with cheap lavender perfume, perhaps a chorus girl or a rival actress. "Infidelity," Poirot whispered, "a motive as old as the hills." Outside, as the first hints of dawn painted the sky in soft pinks, Poirot ventured onto the veranda. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of dew-kissed grass. He scanned the manicured lawn sloping toward the cliff, his eyes catching anomalous sparkle near a cluster of azaleas. Kneeling, he retrieved it with tweezers, a single pearl earring, its clasp bent as if torn in haste, the pearl itself iridescent and flawless, too elegant for a servant, too personal for a stranger. "Voilà," he murmured, holding it to the light. A whisper from the night, hinting at passions unresolved. Back inside, Jane gasped upon seeing it. "That's mine! From my collection! I wore the pair to the gala. But I lost one during a dance. Or did I?" Her hand flew to her ear, confirming the mate was still there. "Someone must have taken it, planted it here to frame me." Brian frowned, his pacing halting. "Or it fell during a visit earlier. Jane, you said you argued with him yesterday." "Enough!" Curtis barked. "We'll sort this at the station. Martin, you're coming too for a statement." As the suspects were escorted out, Poirot lingered, his mustache twitching at the artifice permeating the scene. The knife's angle suggested a killer of average height. The lack of struggle implied trust or surprise. He dusted the desk for prints with a kit from his pocket, revealing partial smudges on the ledger, as if someone had rifled through it post-mortem. Dawn fully broke as Poirot stepped into the garden, the blood moon vanquished by the sun's golden rays. Birds trilled from the branches, a stark contrast to the bungalow's grim interior. He pocketed the earring, his mind cataloging discrepancies. Jane's airtight alibi clashing with the personal artifact, Brian's solitary rehearsal lacking corroboration, the love letters opening avenues of jealousy. Inspector Curtis joined him, lighting a cigarette. "What do you make of it, Poirot? Hollywood's full of backstabbers. Literal now." Poirot smiled faintly. "It is a tableau of deception, Inspector. The ink spills like secrets, the knife a prop in a grander play. But the earring, it speaks of intimacies betrayed, quarrels that end not in words, but in silence." As the forensics team wrapped up, carting evidence bags to their vans, Poirot felt a quiet resolution settle. The chaos of the night had yielded its first fruits, clues that pointed not to hasty conclusions, but to deeper machinations. He bid Curtis farewell, the bungalow now a sealed crypt, and descended the hill toward the awakening city. The puzzle's edges were forming, sharp and promising, leaving him with a sense of progress amid the carnage. A chapter closed, yet the story far from over. Chapter 3. Reels of Alibis. The morning sun climbed lazily over the smog-veiled skyline of Los Angeles, turning the studio lots into a golden labyrinth of opportunity and deceit. Hercule Poirot, fortified by a breakfast of poached eggs and café au lait in his hotel bungalow, arrived at Paragon Studios with the precision of a metronome. The murder of Lord Edgware had sent shockwaves through the industry. Headlines screamed from newsstands, speculating on everything from mob hits to voodoo curses tied to the ill-fated horror film. But Poirot knew better. Motives were rarely supernatural, often as mundane as bruised egos or buried grudges. He was met at the gate by Inspector Curtis, who looked like he'd wrestled a bear and lost, bags under his eyes, tie askew. "Poirot, you're a sight for sore eyes. The brass is breathing down my neck for leads. We've rounded up the usual suspects for questioning in the commissary. Figured a neutral ground might loosen tongues." The commissary was a bustling hive, a cafeteria transformed into an interrogation hub. Long tables laden with half-eaten danishes and cooling coffee urns, extras in period costumes grabbing quick bites between takes. At a corner booth, cordoned off by uniformed officers, sat the inner circle. Faces familiar from the gala, now etched with varying degrees of unease. Jane Wilkinson perched on the edge of her seat, fanning herself with a folded fan magazine featuring her own airbrushed portrait. Brian Martin slouched beside her, nursing a black coffee, his matinee idol charm dimmed by stubble and suspicion. Across from them loomed Donald Seth, the director, a gaunt figure with hollowed cheeks and piercing blue eyes that could freeze lava. He drummed fingers on the table, his tweed jacket rumpled from a sleepless night. And finally, Miss Elena de Castina, the screenwriter, a sharp-featured woman in her 30s, with raven hair pinned in a severe bun, clutching a battered notebook like a shield. Poirot slid into the booth with a courteous nod. "Mesdames and messieurs, thank you for assembling. A tragic reel has played out, and now we must rewind to the truths hidden in the splices." Curtis cleared his throat, flipping open his notepad. "Let's start with alibis. Lady Edgware. Jane, you claimed a charity auction. We've got witnesses, but timelines are fuzzy. What time did you leave?" Jane leaned back, her voice a melodic drawl laced with indignation. "Around 11, darling. The mayor himself escorted me out after I outbid that dreadful socialite on a sapphire necklace. We chatted about my next role, a plucky reporter exposing corruption. Fitting, isn't it?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "And yet, the pearl earring at the scene, yours, no? A curious migration from auction to murder site." She flushed, twisting her rings. "Stolen, I tell you. Some sneak thief at the gala must have pinched it during a waltz. I danced with half the room, politicians, producers, even that oily talent scout from rival studios." Brian interjected, his baritone rumbling like distant thunder. "She's right. I saw her ears bare after a spin with me. We were practicing steps for a musical number in the film, nothing more." Donald Seth snorted, his accent a crisp Oxford clip. "Practicing? Is that what they call it now? I directed you two in a steamy scene last week. Chemistry like that doesn't evaporate off-set." Elena de Castina shot him a withering glance, her pen scratching furiously in her notebook. "Jealousy doesn't suit you, Donald. Focus on facts. As for me, I was holed up in my office revising the script. Edgware demanded changes, said my twist was too clever by half. I worked till dawn, alone with my typewriter and a bottle of gin." Poirot tilted his head. "Ah, the script. The Phantom's Curse, a tale of a spectral killer stalking a film set, stabbing victims with cursed relics. Eerily prescient, Monsieur Seth. Your vision, I presume?" Seth's eyes narrowed to slits. "Art imitates life, or vice versa. But I was on location scouting in the desert outskirts till midnight. My assistant can confirm. We were mapping fog machine placements for the climax." Curtis jotted notes. "We'll check that. Martin, you mentioned a trailer rehearsal. Any proof?" Brian shrugged, pulling out a crumpled pack of Lucky Strikes. "Just my word and a stack of dog-eared pages. But ask the lot's electrician. He fixed a flickering light in my trailer around 10. Saw me pacing, muttering lines about vengeful ghosts." As the alibis spooled out like faulty film strips, Poirot excused himself momentarily, stepping into the adjacent soundstage where the Phantom's Curse was in mid-production. The set was a Gothic marvel, cobweb-draped chandeliers, creaking trapdoors, and a massive organ console for the Phantom's lair. Crew members bustled about, adjusting lights and props, their chatter a low hum of industry gossip. "Heard Edgware got what came to him," whispered a grip to a makeup girl. "Cut our overtime, bastard." Poirot approached the props master, a wiry man named Harlan, with grease-stained overalls and a perpetual squint. "Monsieur, the dagger from the crime. It vanished from here?" "Yep, right off the rack. We use replicas for safety, but that one was the hero prop, as sharp as a tack for close-ups. Last seen during a blocking rehearsal yesterday afternoon. Anyone could have swiped it. Cast, crew, even visitors."
Intrigued, Poirot wandered deeper into the stage, his cane tapping rhythmically on the concrete floor. He paused at a bulletin board plastered with call sheets, daily schedules dictating who was where and when. One caught his eye, yesterday's sheet, listing Jane at the auction, Brian in his trailer, Seth scouting, Elena scripting. But as he peeled it back, a discrepancy emerged. The ink on certain entries seemed fresher, the paper slightly crinkled as if tampered with. "Forged," Poirot murmured, pocketing a torn corner for analysis. "A collective shield, perhaps." Returning to the commissary, he found the group in tense debate. Elena was arguing with Seth. "Your vision ruined my story. Edgware backed you, gutting my original ending, a clever double cross with the Phantom unmasked as the director himself." Seth laughed bitterly. "Because it was trite. Audiences want shocks, not smug twists." Jane rolled her eyes. "Children, please, we're all suspects here." Brian slammed his fist on the table. "Enough! Edgware had enemies everywhere. Owed money to shady investors, blackballed writers. Why pin it on us?" Poirot re-entered smoothly. "Because, mes amis, your alibis interlock like gears in a faulty projector, each supporting the next, yet grinding to a halt under scrutiny. This coal sheet, for instance." He produced the fragment, holding it aloft. "Tampered with. Times altered post facto. Who among you played editor?" Silence descended like a blackout curtain. Elena's face paled. "Not me. I don't handle scheduling. That's the production assistant's job." Seth pointed accusingly at Brian. "You were always snooping around the offices, researching your role." Brian bristled. "Lies. Curtis intervened. "We'll fingerprint the originals. For now, nobody leaves town." As the group dispersed under watchful eyes, Poirot pulled Jane aside near a vending machine stocked with candy bars named after stars. "Mademoiselle, a word. Your auction. Did you notice anyone familiar lurking?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "Well, there was this odd fellow in a fedora bidding against me on everything. Thought he was a fan, but he vanished after I won the necklace. Creepy, like a ghost from one of Elena's scripts." Poirot nodded, filing it away. He then cornered Elena by the water fountain, where she was sketching plot diagrams on a napkin. "Your rejected twist, mademoiselle. What was it precisely?" Elena's eyes lit with fire. "The Phantom wasn't a monster, but a scorned creator whose work was stolen. Stabs the thief with a symbolic blade. Edgware hated it, said it hit too close to home. He'd pilfered ideas before, you know." A seed of motive sprouted in Poirot's mind. He moved on to Seth, finding him outside smoking a pipe under a eucalyptus tree, the leaves rustling like whispers of conspiracy. "Monsieur Director, your scouting trip. Alone?" Seth exhaled a plume of smoke. "With my cinematographer, actually. We discussed angles for a moonlit murder sequence. Ironic, eh? But he left early. Car trouble. Brian, last in line, was practicing shadow boxing against a wall, his form graceful yet ferocious. Monsieur Martin, your rehearsal. Lines about ghosts. Care to recite? Brian paused, sweat beading on his brow. In the dark, vengeance wears no face, only a blade. From the script, but I swear, Poirot, I admired Edgware, despite his flaws. He gave me my break. The sun arced higher, casting long shadows across the lot. Poirot retreated to a quiet editing bay, a dim room filled with the whir of projectors and the scent of developing fluid. There, amid reels of test footage, he pieced together the alibi's fractures. Jane's missing earring potentially planted by the fedora man. Elena's script mirroring the crime. Seth's solitary scouting window. Brian's unverified solitude. A breakthrough came when a junior editor, a freckled youth named Kami, approached timidly. "Sir, found this in the trash bin by the offices." He handed over a crumpled note. "Meet at midnight. Bring the revised pages. No more delays. E." Poirot's mustache quivered. E for Edgware or Elena? A Cyro's call to confrontation. Tommy shrugged. "Don't know, but it smells like her gin, juniper twist." Pocketing the note, Poirot felt the threads tightening. He confronted Elena again, this time in her cluttered office amid stacks of typewritten pages. "This missive, mademoiselle. Yours?" She scanned it, her composure cracking. "Yes, but to Edgware about script changes. He summoned me, then cancelled. I never went." "Or did you?" Poirot pressed. "A forged cold sheet to cover tracks, a note luring him to vulnerability." Her denial rang hollow, but before more could be extracted, a studio alarm blared, fire drill. Chaos ensued. People streaming from buildings, sirens wailing. In the melee, Poirot spotted the fedora man from Jane's description, slipping behind a soundstage. He gave chase, weaving through panicked extras dressed as mummies and vampires. The pursuit led to a props warehouse, a cavern of dusty artifacts, fake swords, rubber masks, coils of rope. The man ducked behind a rack of costumes, but Poirot cornered him. "Reveal yourself, monsieur." The fedora tumbled off, revealing a weaselly face. Victor Klein, a private investigator known in tabloid circles. "Easy, detective. Edgware hired me to tail Jane. Suspected affairs. I swiped her earring as proof, slipped it during the dance, but I didn't kill him." Poirot seized his collar. "Proof of what affair?" Klein smirked. "With Brian, who else? Steamy letters, secret meetings." Edgware was furious, threatened to expose them. A new layer unfolded. Jealousy fueling the forged alibis, binding the lovers in deceit. As Curtis arrived to cuff Klein, Poirot stepped back, the sun now dipping low, painting the sky in fiery oranges. The day's revelations wove a tighter net, alibis crumbling like brittle film, the note a beacon to hidden alliances. Poirot walked the lot's perimeter, the cooling air carrying the distant roar of a lion from the studio zoo. Satisfaction bloomed. Suspects entwined, motives clarified, yet the killer's shadow lingered just out of frame. For now, the reel paused, a momentary resolution in the unfolding drama.
Chapter 4. Ghosts on the Lot. Twilight draped the Paragon Studios' backlots like a tattered shroud, the fog rolling in from the nearby canyons thick enough to swallow footsteps and secrets alike. Hercule Poirot, his overcoat buttoned against the encroaching chill, navigated the maze of abandoned sets, crumbling facades of Victorian manors, rusted Wild West saloons, and skeletal frameworks of futuristic cities that never were. Rubber monsters dangled from overhead rigs, their latex skins sagging like defeated specters, while the distant clang of a forgotten wind chime mimicked the wail of restless spirits. The revelations from the commissary still buzzed in his mind. The affair between Jane and Brian, the private eye's pilfered earring, the cryptic note summoning a midnight rendezvous. But Poirot sought deeper phantoms now, the kind that haunted not just the screen, but the souls behind it. He paused at a dimly lit workshop tucked behind a faux graveyard, its door ajar and spilling the acrid scent of varnish and glue. Inside, Harlan the props master hunched over a workbench, meticulously carving a wooden stake for the film's vampire subplot. Tools scattered like relics, chisels, molds, and a half-finished gargoyle mask leering from the shadows. Harlan looked up, his squint deepening into wariness. "You again, detective? Thought you'd squeezed me dry yesterday." Poirot smiled disarmingly, removing his hat. "Ah, Monsieur Harland, but the well of truth is bottomless. Your dagger collection, tell me, have other items vanished under mysterious circumstances?" Harlan set down his chisel, wiping calloused hands on his apron. "Mysterious? This place is a thieves' paradise. Last month a cursed amulet prop went missing, solid gold plating, worth a pretty penny on the black market. Then the fog machine nozzles started sabotaging themselves, spewing smoke at odd hours. Crew blames the curse, but I say it's grudge work. Edgware slashed budgets. Folks got creative with payback." Poirot's eyes roamed the shelves, noting empty slots where blades once rested. "And who bore the deepest grudges? Names, if you please." Harlan leaned in, voice dropping to a gravelly whisper. "Start with the stunt coordinator, Rocco. Edgware fired his brother for a botched fall, claimed it was sloppy. Rocco's been muttering hexes ever since. Or Leela Voss, that wide-eyed ingenue. She auditioned for the lead, but Edgware called her Wooden and gave it to Jane. Girl's got fire in her belly now." As Harlan spoke, a low rumble echoed from outside, a generator sputtering to life, casting erratic flickers through the grimy windows. Poirot thanked him and stepped back into the mist, his cane probing the uneven ground like a divining rod. Whispers of the cursed production had escalated since Edgware's death, a lighting rig collapsing during a night shoot, nearly crushing a cameraman. An extra vanishing mid-scene, only to reappear disoriented in the commissary hours later, babbling about ghostly hands pulling him into the fog. Superstition or sabotage? Poirot aimed to dissect the myth. He ventured towards the central backlot, where the horror film's primary set loomed, a decrepit mansion facade, with boarded windows and vines choking the porch like strangling fingers. Fog machines, perhaps the very ones Harlan mentioned, hummed intermittently, blanketing the area in a spectral haze. A cluster of crew gathered around a fire barrel, their faces illuminated by dancing flames, sharing tales to ward off the encroaching dark. "Seen the apparition again last night," muttered a burly grip named Silas, poking the fire with an iron rod. "White cloak gliding between the trailers. Swear it whispered my name." A wardrobe assistant, a freckled woman called Mabel, shivered despite the heat. "It's the phantom from Elena's script, come to life because Edgware mocked it. He cut the budget for real ectoplasm effects, said rubber suits were good enough." Poirot approached the group, his presence materializing from the fog like one of their ghosts. "Pardon the intrusion, but these apparitions, describe them, s'il vous plaît." Silas eyed him suspiciously. "You're that foreign sleuth. Well, it's tall, hooded, moves without sound, vanished when I chased it towards the old water tower." Mabel nodded vigorously. "And the accidents! Paint cans toppling on set designers, cables fraying like they've been gnawed. Edgware's cuts left us with shoddy gear. Egos aren't the only things bleeding. We've got real bruises now." Poirot listened intently, his grey cells whirring. And has anyone confronted this spectre? Before they could reply, a piercing scream shattered the night, echoing from the mansion set. The group bolted towards it, Poirot in tow, his short legs pumping with surprising agility.
They burst onto the porch to find Jane Wilkinson crumpled against a pillar, her face ashen, hands clutching a small golden locket that dangled from her neck. Brian Martin knelt beside her, his arms encircling her protectively, while Donald Seth and Elena de Castina hovered nearby, drawn to the commotion.
"Jane, what happened?" Brian urged, his voice laced with panic. She gasped, pointing a trembling finger into the fog. It touched me, a cold hand from the mist, whispering threats. "You'll pay like he did." Then it fled into the shadows. Poirot knelt, examining her without touch. "Compose yourself, mademoiselle. This locket, may I see?" Jane hesitated, then unclasped it, handing it over. The front was engraved with swirling vines, but flipping it revealed initials, J.W. to E.D., not matching her story of a family heirloom from her grandmother. E.D., Elena de Castina, perhaps, Poirot queried softly. Elena's eyes widened. "That's mine. Lost it weeks ago during a script meeting. How did you—" Jane snatched it back. "Found it in my dressing room yesterday. Thought it was a gift from a fan. But why my initials, too?" Seth interjected, his gaunt face twisted in skepticism. "Coincidence or someone stirring the pot? This ghost is probably a prankster exploiting the curse rumors to scare us off the lot." Brian stood, fists clenched. "Or the killer, back to finish the job. We need to search the area, now!" The group fanned out, torches cutting swaths through the fog. Poirot lingered with Elena, who fidgeted with her notebook. "Mademoiselle de Castina, your locket with Jane's initials, a token of friendship or something more intimate?" Elena flushed, glancing away. "We collaborated closely on the script. She admired it. I must have left it behind. But this ghost business, it's lifted straight from my early drafts, a vengeful spirit targeting the production's elite." As they spoke, a darting figure materialized in the periphery, a spectral form in a flowing white robe, weaving between prop tombstones. "There!" Poirot shouted, giving chase. The pursuit led through a labyrinth of set pieces, dodging overturned carriages, leaping over faux pitfalls. The ghost was agile, but Poirot's determination matched it, cornering the apparition against a chain-link fence bordering the lot's edge. "Unmask yourself," Poirot commanded, cane raised like a rapier. The figure whirled, hood falling back to reveal Leela Voss, the ingenue, her makeup streaked with sweat, eyes wild with defiance. "It's not what you think. I was just practicing." Brian and the others caught up, gasping. "Leela? You?" She crumpled, sobbing. "Edgware ruined me, said I'd never amount to more than a background ghost. So I became one, rigging little scares to disrupt the film. The falling rigs, the whispers, petty revenge. But I didn't kill him. I was at a speakeasy that night, drowning sorrows with bootleg gin." Poirot pocketed a scrap of white fabric from her robe. "And the locket, did you plant it on Jane?" "No, I swiped props for my stunts, but not jewelry." Seth grabbed her arm. "You little saboteur, this explains the curse, all smoke and mirrors." But Elena stepped forward, her voice steady. "Wait, Leela's pranks don't account for everything. Last week, an extra really vanished, found wandering the hills, claiming he was drugged and dumped there." The revelation hung heavy as the fog. Poirot dismissed the group to ponder under the emerging stars, escorting Leela to Curtis's waiting patrol car for questioning. Alone at last, he settled on a weathered bench near the water tower, a thermos of espresso procured from a sympathetic night watchman warming his hands. The brew was strong, bitter notes dancing on his tongue like elusive clues. Sipping slowly, he reviewed the night's harvest. Harlan's tales of grudges, the crew's superstitions, Jane's hysterics, unveiling the mismatched locket, Leela's unmasking as the faux phantom. But deeper sabotage lurked. drugged extras, stolen amulets, hinting at a calculated campaign beyond petty spite. The initials ED on the locket suggested Elena's involvement, perhaps a scorned collaboration turned sour. Or was it a frame, diverting attention from the real killer's trail? Stars twinkled overhead, indifferent witnesses to human folly. Poirot's mind sharpened the puzzle's edges, motives intersecting like spotlight beams, betrayals glinting like hidden blades. The lot's ghosts were unmasked as human frailties, but the true spectre, the one who wielded the dagger, still roamed free. As the espresso's warmth faded, a quiet satisfaction settled. Another veil lifted, the betrayal's blade honing finer. The night whispered closure for now, the backlot's secrets yielding just enough to beckon the dawn's revelations.
Chapter 5. The Screen Test of Lies. The velvet-draped screening room at Paragon Studios was a cocoon of shadows, its plush seats arranged in a semicircle like silent jurors awaiting a verdict. Dim sconces cast a golden glow over oak-paneled walls, where framed posters of past triumphs, swashbuckling epics, and tear-soaked melodramas hung as relics of dreams preserved on celluloid. Hercule Poirot stood at the room's center, his silhouette framed by the massive screen behind him, a silver expanse that flickered with test footage from the Phantom's curse. The air hummed with anticipation, the faint whir of a projector mingling with the nervous breaths of the assembled suspects. The murder of Lord Edgware had tightened its grip on Hollywood's gilded heart, and Poirot, with his meticulous mind, was ready to unspool the lies that bound the guilty. Inspector Curtis lounged by the door, his bulk a reassuring barrier against any sudden exits. Before him sat the key players, Jane Wilkinson, radiant despite her pallor, her fingers twisting a silk scarf embroidered with peacock feathers. Brian Martin, his jaw clenched, eyes darting like a caged panther. Donald Seth, the director, slouched with a cigarette dangling unlit from his lips, his gaunt frame radiating disdain. And Elena de Castina, clutching her ever-present notebook, her sharp features set in a mask of guarded intellect. Leela Voss, the unmasked prankster, was absent, detained for her sabotage but cleared of murder after her speakeasy alibi held firm under scrutiny. Poirot clapped his hands, the sound sharp as a clapperboard. "Mesdames, messieurs, we gather not for a premiere, but for a reckoning. The screen behind me shall play not fiction, but truth, or its absence. Each of you spins a tale of innocence, yet the shadows betray you. Let us begin the screen test of your alibis." He gestured to a projectionist, a nervous youth named Eddie, who dimmed the lights and started the reel. Grainy footage flickered, a rehearsal scene from the horror film. Jane and Brian locked in a passionate embrace, their lips inches apart as the phantom shadow loomed. The room tensed. Jane's scarf slipped to the floor. Brian's knuckles whitened on the armrest. "Observe," Poirot said, his voice a velvet scalpel. "The chemistry is palpable, no? A love scene too authentic for mere performance. Monsieur Martin, you swore your rehearsals were solitary, yet this footage, time-stamped the night of the murder, places you with Mademoiselle Wilkinson at the studio, not across town." Brian shot to his feet, his voice a growl. "That's preposterous. That was filmed weeks ago. Eddie, check the slate." Eddie fumbled with the projector, pausing the reel to reveal a clapperboard. Scene 17, Take 3, 18 September 2025. The date was damning, mere hours before Edgware's death. Jane gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "Brian, you said you were alone. Were you with me?" Poirot raised a hand. "Patience, mademoiselle.
The reel continues." He nodded to Eddie, who advanced the footage. Now it showed a dimly lit office, Elena hunched over her typewriter, her fingers flying across keys. But as the camera panned, a shadow flitted across the window, a figure in a fedora, the same private eye, Victor Klein, who'd confessed to tailing Jane. The timestamp matched, 11:45 p.m., perilously close to the murder. Elena's pen froze mid-scribble. "That's my office, but I didn't see anyone. I was rewriting the climax. Edgware demanded a bloodier ending. I worked straight through." Seth snorted, flicking ash from his unlit cigarette. "Convenient. Your script's practically a blueprint for the crime. Cursed blade, betrayed creator. You've got motive dripping like fake blood." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Indeed, Monsieur Seth. And you, scouting in the desert, yes? Yet no footage confirms your journey. Your cinematographer claimed car trouble, conveniently leaving you unaccounted for." Seth's jaw tightened. "I don't need a babysitter to scout locations. I was mapping a canyon for the Phantom's escape scene. Alone." The screen flickered again, now showing a test shot of the mansion's set, fog swirling around prop tombstones. A fleeting figure darted across, Leela Voss in her white robe, staging her prank. But in the background, barely visible, a second shadow lingered, taller, cloaked in black, holding what appeared to be a script. Poirot froze the frame, pointing. "This shadow does not match Mademoiselle Voss's silhouette. Who else prowled the lot that night?" Jane's voice trembled. "It's like the Phantom itself. I told you, Poirot, something touched me in the fog. Something real." Brian gripped her hand. "Enough games, Poirot. You're chasing ghosts when the real killer's probably halfway to Mexico." Curtis interjected, his notepad flapping. "We've got physical evidence tying you all together. That locket, Jane, initials linking you to Elena. Care to explain?" Jane's eyes widened, her scarf now a crumpled heap. "I told you I found it in my dressing room. Someone's framing me, using my own jewelry against me." Elena leaned forward, her voice icy. "Or you're using my locket to deflect. You knew Edgware was rejecting my script. Maybe you saw a chance to secure your role by silencing him." The accusation hung like a guillotine. Poirot paced before the screen, his cane tapping a deliberate rhythm. "Let us consider the props of this drama. The dagger, stolen from the set, suggests an insider. The locket, with dual initials, whispers of alliances or betrayals. And this shadow," he gestured to the frozen frame, "is no phantom, but a player yet to take the stage."
He signaled Eddie to switch reels. Now the screen showed security footage from the studio's front gate, grainy but clear. A car exiting at 12:15 a.m., its driver obscured but wearing a distinctive scarf. Peacock feathers, identical to Jane's. She gasped, "That's not me! I was at the auction till 11, then home with my maid." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Yet the scarf, mademoiselle, is unmistakable. A costume change, perhaps, to slip unnoticed to Edgware's." Brian stood again, towering. "You're grasping, Poirot. That could be anyone in a stolen scarf. I've seen those in the costume department, dozens of them." Seth smirked. "Defending your lover, Martin? Your trailer's near the gate. Easy to slip out, play the Phantom, then return to your rehearsal." Before Brian could retort, Poirot raised a hand, producing a small envelope from his pocket. This, found in the editing bay, contains a single frame cut from this very footage, a close-up of the driver's hand wearing a ring engraved with a serpent, identical to one Monsieur Seth described as his lucky charm during our first meeting. Seth's cigarette fell to the floor.
"That's absurd. I lost that ring weeks ago. Someone's planting evidence." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Or you're careless, Donald. You were always flaunting that ring, claiming it brought you Oscars. Maybe you left it at the scene." The room crackled with accusations, each suspect a spark ready to ignite. Poirot stepped to the projector, examining its lens with a magnifying glass. "Curieux," he murmured. "The lens is misaligned, creating a distorted shadow in the footage, a mismatched silhouette, making our second phantom appear taller than reality. A deliberate sabotage, perhaps, to obscure the truth." He turned to the group, his voice steady as a director calling action. "Your alibis are reels of lies, each frame edited to conceal. But the truth, it flickers like this projector, revealing what you wish hidden. Monsieur Martin, your lover's embrace places you at the studio. Mademoiselle de Castina, your script mirrors the murder too closely. Monsieur Seth, your ring betrays your presence. And Mademoiselle Wilkinson, your scarf ties you to the night's movements." Jane's voice rose, a desperate crescendo. "Then who, Poirot, who's orchestrating this?" Before he could answer, Eddie, the projectionist, cleared his throat nervously. Sir, there's another reel. Found it misfiled in the vault, labeled confidential. Should I play it?" Poirot nodded, his eyes never leaving the suspects. The screen sprang to life with a new scene, a clandestine meeting in a dimly lit prop room, time-stamped 2 days before the murder. Edgware's voice boomed, his figure pacing before a stack of crates. "You think you can outsmart me? I own this town, and your little scheme ends now." The camera shifted, revealing his interlocutor, Elena, her face a storm of defiance. "You stole my story, Ronald, rewrote it to glorify your precious Jane. I'll expose you. Lawsuits, headlines, everything." Edgware laughed, a cruel bark. "Try it, and you'll be blacklisted from here to Broadway. Your pages are ash without my backing." The reel ended abruptly, the screen blank. Elena's notebook slipped to the floor, pages fanning out like scattered clues. "That was a private argument. I didn't kill him. I threatened legal action, not violence." Poirot's gaze softened, but only slightly. "But your words, mademoiselle, paint a motive as vivid as your script. And this reel, why hidden?" Curtis stepped forward. "We'll trace its origin. For now, nobody moves." As the group sat in stunned silence, Poirot slipped outside to the studio's courtyard, where the evening air carried the scent of jasmine and diesel. He lit a cigarette, the smoke curling like the tendrils of doubt in his mind. The footage had cracked open new fault lines: Elena's confrontation, Seth's ring, Jane's scarf, Brian's presence, all threads in a tapestry woven with malice. But the mismatched shadow nagged at him, a deliberate glitch hinting at a puppeteer behind the scenes. He wandered to the prop room from the reel, now locked, but easily opened with a hairpin from his pocket, a trick learned from less savory cases. Inside, crates were stacked haphazardly, some labeled props. Rummaging carefully, he found a hidden compartment in one crate, revealing a bundle of papers, script pages, but not Elena's. These were handwritten, in a scrawl he didn't recognize, detailing a murder scene eerily similar to Edgware's, a producer stabbed with a prop knife, betrayed by a lover and a writer in collusion. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, "a rehearsal for death." As he pocketed the pages, a soft thud echoed from the far corner.
He spun, cane raised, to see a crate teetering, then falling, spilling rubber skulls across the floor. A figure darted behind a curtain, slender, cloaked, gone before he could pursue. The scent of lavender lingered, faint but unmistakable, not unlike the perfume on the love letters from Edgware's desk. Returning to the screening room, Poirot found the suspects dismersing under Curtis's watchful eye. He held up the script pages. A final act mise-en-scène. These pages, hidden in the prop room, mirror the crime. Whose hand penned them, and who fled just now, leaving only perfume as their signature? Jane clutched Brian's arm. It's the phantom again, tormenting us. Seth's eyes darted to Elena. Her handwriting, check it. Elena shook her head. Not mine. I use a typewriter for everything. Brian's voice was low, dangerous. Someone's playing director, setting us up. Poirot nodded, his mind a kaleidoscope of clues. The reel's confrontation, the ring, the scarf, the shadow, the script, each pointed to a conspiracy, but the mastermind remained a silhouette. As the projector whirred to silence, he felt a quiet resolution settle. The screening test had exposed cracks in the alibis, but the killer's face was still out of focus. For now, he murmured to himself, little gremlins in the machinery, the air thick with the promise of unmasking yet to come.
Chapter 6. Echoes from the Cutting Room. Deep beneath the glittering facade of Paragon Studios, in the subterranean editing bays where the air hummed with the perpetual whir of sprockets and the faint ozone tang of overheated machinery, Hercule Poirot descended like a miner into the veins of forgotten narratives. The bays were a labyrinth of dimly lit cubicles, walls lined with shelves groaning under canisters of discarded footage, snippets of laughter truncated mid-chuckle, dramatic monologues severed before their climax, all rotting in celluloid limbo, like dreams deferred to the cutting-room floor. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows that danced across splicing tables littered with razor blades, glue pots, and loops of film dangling like nooses. Poirot had come here on a tip from Eddie the projectionist, who, after the screening room revelations, had whispered of bootleg reels hidden in the vaults, unauthorized copies of raw dailies that captured more than intended. The detective's patent leather shoes echoed softly on the concrete as he navigated the maze, his cane a silent sentinel. The previous night's discoveries, the misaligned lens, the hidden script pages, and the fleeing figure's lavender scent, had woven a tighter web, but Poirot sought the echoes that lingered in these mechanical crypts, the unintended confessions preserved on tape. He found Donald Seth in a secluded bay at the far end, the director hunched over a Steenbeck editing machine, his skeletal fingers threading film with the precision of a surgeon. The room was a cocoon of chaos, empty coffee mugs stacked like totems, ashtrays overflowing with cigarette butts, and walls plastered with storyboards sketched in frantic charcoal, scenes of phantoms lurking in mirrors, victims clawing at invisible throats. Seth looked up, his blue eyes bloodshot from hours in the gloom, a half-smoked pipe clenched between his teeth. "Poirot," he rasped, not bothering to rise. "Slumming it in the bowels of creation? What brings the great detective to my humble splice den?" Poirot removed his hat, placing it on a nearby stool with deliberate care. "Monsieur Seth, the bowels often reveal what the surface conceals. I have heard whispers of bootleg reels, recordings that capture not just performances, but indiscretions. Lord Edgware's final tirade, perhaps, a venomous outburst that sealed the film's fate." Seth's pipe trembled slightly as he exhaled a plume of aromatic tobacco, the scent of cherry wood mingling with the room's musty undertones. Bootlegs? Nonsense! Everything here's above board. But if you're fishing, sure. Edgware did rant in a late-night session last week. Demanded I cut the budget again. Called my vision pretentious drivel. Doomed the picture to B-movie obscurity before it even wrapped. Poirot leaned closer, his green eyes piercing the haze. And these rants, were they recorded? Perhaps on one of these hidden microphones I have noticed tucked into the rafters. Seth paused, his finger stilling on the film reel. Microphones. For sound tests, yes, but nothing sinister. Play it if you must. It's on that canister labeled Outtakes Reel 7. With a nod, Poirot donned cotton gloves from his pocket and loaded the reel into a nearby viewer. The machine clattered to life, projecting grainy images onto a small screen. Edgware, in a fury, pacing a dimly lit office set, his face contorted in rage. "This tripe won't sell tickets. Cut the artsy fog, Seth. Give me blood, screams, something to pack the theaters." His voice boomed, laced with contempt. "And tell that hack de Castina her twists are laughable. I'll bury this film if I have to." The footage ended abruptly. But Poirot rewound, spotting a flicker in the background, a door ajar, a feminine silhouette slipping away. "Interesting," he murmured, "a witness to his venom. But listen closer, Monsieur Seth, beneath the tirade, a subtler sound." He adjusted the audio knobs, isolating a faint hum. There, embedded like a ghost track, a woman's voice whispered, "The divorce is off. We need something more permanent. Meet me at the Overlook after midnight." The timbre was unmistakable, Jane Wilkinson's sultry drawl, but laced with a steel edge unheard before. Seth's pipe clattered to the table. "That's Jane, plotting not divorce, but murder. I didn't know this was on here." Poirot's moustache quivered. "Or did you, monsieur? This microphone, hidden, capturing secrets. Who placed it, and why does it point to a conspiracy far more cinematic than your phantom's tale?" Before Seth could stammer a reply, a cascade of clues began to unfold like a misfed reel jamming the projector. Poirot's sharp gaze fell on a discarded handkerchief peeking from beneath a pile of film scraps, fine linen, monogrammed with D.S. in elegant script, stained with a faint reddish smear that wasn't ink. "Your handkerchief, no? And this stain? Lipstick? Or perhaps blood from a minor cut sustained in haste?" Seth snatched it back, his composure fracturing. "Lipstick from a rendezvous. Nothing to do with Edgware. I was with a script girl that night. Alibi solid." But Poirot pressed on, rummaging through a nearby trash bin with gloved hands. He extracted a crumpled cocktail glass, its rim dusted with a crystalline residue. "Ah, a prop from the set, a poisoned chalice in your script, I recall. But this residue, not sugar, arsenic perhaps, easily mistaken for a hangover cure in the wrong hands." Seth paled, backing against the wall. "Poison! That's madness! Edgware was stabbed, not sipped to death. Someone's setting me up, planting this junk in my bay." The confrontation escalated as Inspector Curtis arrived by Poirot's earlier call. The burly inspector lumbered in, his notepad at the ready. "More tricks, Poirot? We've got Seth's ring from the footage. Now this."
Poirot nodded. "Indeed," but observed the threads tightening, the voice plotting permanence, the handkerchief stain, the tainted glass. Each pulls at the suspects' throats like a garrote.
Curtis examined the glass, bagging it for analysis. Lab will confirm if it's poison. Seth, you're coming downtown for questioning. As Seth was led away protesting, Poirot lingered in the bay, the machine's hum a symphony for his ruminations. He sifted through more detritus, a torn memo from Edgware demanding immediate reshoots or face cancellation, edges singed as if burned in anger. A vial of lavender essence, matching the scent from the prop room escapee, perhaps Evelyn, the mysterious paramour from the love letters. Venturing deeper into adjacent bays, Poirot encountered Elena de Castina in a dimly lit alcove, her typewriter clacking furiously amid stacks of revised pages. She looked up, her bun askew, ink smudges on her cheeks like war paint. "Poirot, snooping in the creative crypts. I've got deadlines. Edgware's ghost won't rewrite itself." He settled on a stool opposite her. "Mademoiselle, your scripts echo the crime, but now a voice on tape, Jane's, plots something permanent. You collaborated closely. Did you overhear such schemes?" Elena's fingers paused, her eyes flickering with calculation. "Jane, permanent. She's all bluster. We discussed character arcs, not assassinations. But if you're implying I bugged the set, absurd. Though I did plant a recorder once for authentic dialogue inspiration." Poirot arched an eyebrow. "Inspiration that captures malice. And this vial," he produced the lavender essence, "yours, the scent of a fugitive in the prop room." She snatched it, uncorking for a sniff. "Mine, yes. For migraines. Writing under Edgware's thumb induced plenty. But fugitive, I was here all night pounding keys." Their exchange was interrupted by Brian Martin bursting in, his trench coat flapping like a cape, face thunderous. "Poirot, I heard Seth is in cuffs. What's this about Jane's voice on tape? She's innocent, framed by that weasel director." Poirot calmed him with a gesture. "Monsieur Martin, your loyalty is commendable, but the tape does not lie. Permanent, a word heavy with implication. And you, with your trailer nearby, perhaps complicit." Brian pounded the table, scattering pages. "Complicit. I loved her, but not enough to kill. That night I was mixing a cocktail, prop stuff for a scene. If it's poisoned, someone tampered after I left it in the bay." Elena interjected, her voice sharp. "Convenient, Brian. Your jealousy of Edgware's hold on Jane was no secret. And that handkerchief, Seth's, or yours monogrammed similarly." The trio's debate swirled like a storm, accusations flying, Brian claiming Elena's scripts as blueprints for frame-ups, Elena pointing to Brian's volatile temper, Poirot interweaving clues like a master editor. As tensions peaked, a hidden panel in the wall creaked open, a secret compartment for smuggling bootlegs, revealing a stack of envelopes addressed to Evelyn Dare, postmarked from a downtown address, content spilling, blackmail notes demanding hush money over Edgware's embezzlement from studio funds. "Voilà," Poirot exclaimed. "Evelyn, not a lover, but an alias, or a whistleblower silenced." Brian grabbed one. "These are in Seth's handwriting. He was in on Edgware scams, cooking the books to fund pet projects." Elena paled. "And Jane knew? She mentioned permanent solutions to financial woes in passing. Jokingly, I thought." The revelations cascaded, pulling the noose tighter. Curtis returned with lab results via phone. The glass residue was indeed arsenic, trace amounts matching a bottle from the props department. Enough to sicken, not kill, perhaps a failed attempt before the dagger. As night fell, the bays emptying of staff, Poirot dismissed the others under surveillance, retreating to a solitary alcove. He spread the clues on a splicing table, the tape, handkerchief, glass, envelopes, vial, arranging them like a storyboard of sin. The monogram linked Seth, the poison Brian, the voice Jane, the blackmail Elena. Yet a rhythm emerged, a pattern of orchestration pointing to a singular conductor. Sipping cognac from a flask, Poirot's mind ignited with revelation. The lavender tied to Evelyn, whose address matched a boarding house near the studio. A quick call to Curtis dispatched officers there, but for now solitude reigned. The machines whirred softly, echoes of discarded dreams lulling him. The chapter's sins pieced together, a momentary harmony in the discord, A revelation poised, the nightfall a curtain on act's end. Chapter 7. The Phantom's Masquerade. The Paragon Studios lot transformed under the silver glow of a waxing gibbous moon, its sprawling grounds alight with the frenetic pulse of a costume ball that rivaled the excesses of Versailles. Torches flickered along pathways lined with topiary sculpted into grotesque shapes, gargoyles, grinning skulls, and spectral hands clawing skyward, casting eerie silhouettes across the revelers. The air thrummed with the jazz band's sultry syncopation, saxophones weaving through laughter and the clink of crystal flutes brimming with illicit champagne. Guests swirled in fantastical garb, starlets as gilded goddesses, producers as pirate kings, grips masquerading as medieval jesters. Hercule Poirot, clad in a tailored harlequin costume, black and white diamonds with a crimson mask, blended seamlessly into the chaos, his keen eyes scanning for the phantom that haunted not just the script, but the souls gathered here. The ball was Basil Thorne's brainchild, a defiant celebration to lift the pall of Edgware's murder and the cursed production's shadow. Yet Poirot sensed a darker purpose, a stage for truths to unmask themselves amid the artifice. The clues from the editing bays still burned in his mind. Jane's whispered plot for a permanent solution, Seth's blood-stained handkerchief, the arsenic-laced glass, the blackmail notes to Evelyn Dare. Each thread tightened the noose, but the killer's face remained veiled, a silhouette taunting from the edges of his gray cells. Poirot glided through the crowd, his cane now a silver-tipped prop that doubled as a discreet probe. He spotted Jane Wilkinson first, radiant as Cleopatra, her golden asp crown glinting as she twirled with a senator dressed as Mark Antony. Her laughter was a practiced melody, but her violet eyes darted nervously, as if expecting a dagger in the shadows. Brian Martin prowled nearby, a caped avenger in a Zorro mask, his broad shoulders tense, a hand resting on a prop sword that looked too real for comfort. Donald Seth, draped in a grim reaper's cloak, leaned against a faux marble column, his skeletal frame blending with the costume's menace as he sipped gin from a skull-shaped goblet. Elena de Castina, a veiled widow in black lace, hovered near a buffet laden with caviar and truffles, her notebook tucked under her arm like a talisman against the night's revelry. The detective paused by a fountain sculpted as a weeping cherub, its water tinted red for dramatic effect, and overheard a gaggle of extras whispering. "The phantom's here," hissed a girl in a fairy costume, her wings drooping from humidity. Her companion, a pirate with a fake parrot, scoffed. "Rubbish! It's Leela Voss again, stirring trouble even after her arrest." Poirot's mustache twitched beneath his mask. Leela's pranks had been debunked, but the persistent phantom sightings suggested a deeper orchestration. He moved toward the central pavilion, a tented wonderland draped in crimson velvet, where a makeshift stage hosted a reenactment of the Phantom's Curse's climactic scene. Actors in tattered costumes mimed terror as a cloaked figure brandished a prop knife, the crowd gasping in delighted fear. But Poirot's attention snagged at a detail. The knife's runes matched the murder weapons, a chilling echo of reality. He approached Jane, who was fanning herself with a palm frond. "Mademoiselle Cleopatra, a word. This ball, is it celebration or distraction?" Jane's smile faltered, her asp crown tilting. "Basil's idea, darling. Says we need to show the world we're not cursed. But honestly, Poirot, I'm petrified. That phantom. Last night it left this in my dressing room." She produced a folded note, its edges charred. "The asp bites twice. Beware the Ides of September." Poirot examined it, noting the elegant script, unlike the blackmail note's scrawl. "The Ides, yesterday. A warning or a taunt? And this asp, a reference to your costume, perhaps?" Before she could reply, a commotion erupted near the stage. The crowd parted as a trap door sprang open, and a dummy dressed as Lord Edgware, with a waxen face and a prop knife plunged into his chest, tumbled from the rafters, swinging on a rope like a grotesque piñata. Gasps turned to screams. Champagne flutes shattered on the cobblestones. Brian lunged forward, slicing the rope with his sword, the dummy crumpling to the ground as confetti exploded from its hollow torso, showering the crowd in glittering chaos. "Enough of this," Brian roared, his mask slipping to reveal a face flushed with fury. "Some sick joker's mocking his death." Elena pushed through, her veil askew. "It's the script. My original draft had a dummy reveal to unmask the Phantom. Someone's read my pages." Seth, his reaper hood thrown back, sneered. "Your pages, Elena, or your confession? You've been milking this curse nonsense to cover your tracks." Poirot raised a hand, silencing the bickering. "Mes amis, this is no prank, but a calculated strike. The knife in the dummy, identical to the murder weapon. And this confetti," he scooped a handful, revealing tiny scraps of paper with typed fragments. "Betrayal cuts deeper than steel." A message woven into the spectacle. Who orchestrated this? The crowd buzzed with speculation as Basil Thorne, dressed as a ringmaster in a crimson tailcoat, took the stage, his voice booming through a megaphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, a mere jest! Let's dance away the frights!" The band struck up a frantic Charleston, but Poirot's focus shifted to a fleeting figure at the pavilion's edge, a cloaked silhouette, not white, but black, slipping through a side flap towards the sound stages. He pursued, weaving through dancers twirling like dervishes, their costumes a kaleidoscopic feathers and sequins. The trail led to a deserted alley behind the main soundstage, where fog machines hissed, cloaking the ground in a ghostly veil. The figure darted into a storage shed, its door slamming shut. Poirot approached cautiously, his cane probing the lock, a flimsy padlock, easily snapped with a twist. Inside the shed was a trove of discarded props, moth-eaten capes, cracked mirrors, and a crate labeled Phantom Effects. The figure was gone, but a trail of black sequins glittered on the floor, leading to a trap door beneath a rug. Poirot lifted it, revealing a ladder descending into a tunnel, an old smuggling route from Prohibition days, used to ferry bootleg liquor to studios. He descended, the air growing damp and metallic, the walls lined with rusted pipes that dripped like weeping wounds. At the tunnel's end, a hidden room opened, a makeshift shrine to the Phantom's curse, its walls plastered with script pages, newspaper clippings of Edgware's murder, and a mannequin draped in a black cloak, its face a blank plaster mask. A single candle flickered, casting long shadows that danced like conspirators. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, "a stage within a stage." Footsteps echoed behind him, and he spun to find Brian, his Zorro cape billowing, sword still in hand. "Poirot, I saw you chase someone. Thought you needed backup." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Or did you follow to silence a witness, Monsieur Martin? This shrine, your creation, a tribute to jealousy over Mademoiselle Wilkinson?" Brian's grip tightened on his sword. "Jealousy? I loved Jane, but I didn't kill for her. This place, it's new to me, smells like obsession, not passion." Before Poirot could press further, a metallic clang rang out, a trap door slamming shut above. They raced back, only to find the ladder blocked by a toppled crate. Brian cursed, hacking at the wood with his sword, but Poirot's mind raced faster. "A trap, monsieur. Someone lures us here, perhaps to bury their secrets." Using his cane, Poirot pried a loose panel from the wall, revealing a crawl space back to the surface. They emerged in the soundstage, now dark save for the glow of emergency lights. The ball's music had faded, replaced by the murmur of departing guests. Poirot and Brian rejoined the others in the pavilion, where Curtis waited, his face grim. "Found something," Curtis said, holding up a velvet pouch. "Hidden in the stage rigging, cyanide capsules, and have to drop a dozen Edgwares. And this," he produced a torn photograph, Jane and Elena, arms linked, smiling at a script reading but with Edgware's face scratched out in vicious red ink. Jane gasped, her asp crown slipping. "That's from last month. Someone's twisted it, making us look guilty." Elena's veil trembled. "It's my photo, but I didn't deface it. Someone's playing puppet master, pulling strings we can't see." Seth tossed his goblet aside. "Enough theatrics. Whoever set up that dummy knows the script. Elena's script. She's the mastermind, framing us all." Poirot stepped forward, his harlequin mask glinting. "Or the puppet master hides among you, using the ball's chaos to stage their reveal. The cyanide, the photo, the shrine, all props in a grander production. But the sequins," he held up one, its black sheen catching the light, "these belong to no costume here tonight. A new player, perhaps." Curtis barked orders to seal the lot, but Poirot lingered, gathering his grey cells under the moon's watchful gaze. He slipped away to a quiet corner near a prop guillotine, its blade gleaming like a promise. The night's events unspooled in his mind. The dummy's knife, the charred note, the shrine's obsession, the trapped tunnel. Each clue tightened the narrative, yet the killer's mask held firm. Yet satisfaction bloomed, the puzzle's edges sharpened, the blade of truth gleaming closer. The night closed with a quiet applause, the stars above indifferent to the drama below, but Poirot's resolve burned brighter than ever.
Chapter 8. Twist in the Final Cut. The forbidden vault beneath Paragon Studios was a crypt of celluloid secrets, its steel-reinforced door hidden behind a false wall in the studio's archival wing. Hercule Poirot stood before it, his silhouette a stark contrast against the flickering gaslight that illuminated the corridor's damp stone walls. The air was thick with the musty scent of aging nitrate film, brittle reels stacked in towering racks like the bones of forgotten stories. Each canister held a rejected dream, test shots, botched takes, and scenes too scandalous for the silver screen. Poirot's fingers, gloved in white cotton, traced the vault's lock, a labyrinthine mechanism that whispered of treasures guarded by paranoia. The masquerade's chaos, the dummy's fall, the cyanide capsules, the shrine's obsession had led him here, to the heart of the studio's darkest truths, where the final reel of Lord Edgware's murder awaited its premiere. The clues had coalesced into a mosaic of malice. Jane's whispered plot for a permanent solution, Seth's blood-stained handkerchief, the arsenic-laced glass, the blackmail notes to Evelyn Dare, the black sequins trailing a phantom. But it was the handwritten script pages found in the prop room that had driven Poirot to this vault, pages that mirrored the murder with chilling precision, penned by an unseen hand. Inspector Curtis had secured a skeleton key from Basil Thorne, who'd paled at the mention of the vault. "Nobody goes in there," Basil stammered. "Edgware's orders, private stash, sensitive material." Now, as Curtis jimmied the lock with a grunt, the door groaned open, revealing a cavernous chamber lit by a single bulb swaying like a hangman's noose. Shelves stretched into shadow, laden with canisters labeled in cryptic shorthand, Test 1923, Banned Reels, Edgware Personal. Poirot's cane tapped a deliberate rhythm as he scanned the labels, his green eyes glinting with purpose. "Here, Inspector," he said, pointing to a canister marked Phantom's Curse, uncut. The final cut, perhaps, of our tragedy. Curtis hauled the canister to a portable projector set up on a rickety table, its lens clouded with years of neglect. As the machine whirred to life,
Poirot summoned the suspects to the vault. A grim cast assembled for the denouement. Jane Wilkinson arrived first, her Cleopatra gown replaced by a somber navy dress, her violet eyes red-rimmed from sleepless nights. Brian Martin followed, his Zorro cape discarded for a rumpled suit, his jaw set in defiance. Donald Seth slunk in, his reaper's cloak swapped for a tweed jacket, his gaunt face a mask of resignation. Elena de Castilla was last, her notebook clutched like a lifeline, her sharp features etched with defiance beneath her loosened bun. Poirot stood before the screen, a silver expanse that shimmered like a portal to truth. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice a velvet blade. "We stand in the vault of secrets, where the final reel unveils the killer. You have woven alibis like scripts, but the camera does not lie. Let us play the tape and unmask the phantom." The projector clattered, casting grainy images. A test shoot of the horror film's climax, the phantom unmasked as a scorned artist, stabbing a producer with a runed dagger. But as the scene faded, a new clip emerged, unscripted, raw. It showed Edgware in his bungalow study hours before his death, arguing with a figure cloaked in shadow. The camera, hidden in a bookshelf, captured his venom. "You'll get nothing. I own your words, your dreams. Cross me and you're finished." The figure stepped into frame, face obscured, but voice clear. A woman's, sharp and venomous. "You stole my life's work. Tonight, you pay." The voice was Elena's, unmistakable despite her attempt at modulation. She gasped, her notebook tumbling to the floor. "That's not me. Someone's dubbed my voice, forged it." Jane clutched Brian's arm, her voice a whisper. "Elena, you planned this?" Brian's fists clenched. "She's lying, Poirot. It's a setup. Her script was the blueprint." Seth snorted, his cigarette unlit but trembling. Always knew she was trouble. Her original draft was just a revenge fantasy. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the cacophony. "Patience. The reel is but one act. Observe the props." He produced a velvet pouch from his pocket, spilling its contents onto the table. The black sequins from the masquerade, a vial of lavender essence, and a single page torn from the hidden script, its ink matching the charred note from Jane's dressing room. Curtis interjected, holding up a lab report. "Ribbon's ink contains traces of arsenic, same as the glass from the editing bay. Someone's been poisoning the well, literally." Poirot's mustache twitched as he turned to Elena. "Mademoiselle de Castilla, your script was rejected, your genius stolen by Edgware. The reel shows your voice, your motive. The page mirrors his death. Yet you claim forgery?" Elena's eyes blazed. "I wrote a story, not a murder. Edgware stole my twist. A creator betrayed, killing the thief. He rewrote it to glorify Jane, but I never acted on it. Someone's using my words against me."
Poirot nodded, shifting to Jane. "And you, mademoiselle, your voice on tape plotting permanence. Your scarf at the gate, your locket with Elena's initials. A lover's quarrel turned deadly, perhaps."
Jane's tears spilled, genuine at last. "I loved Brian, yes, but I didn't kill Ronald. The scarf was stolen. I found it missing after the gala. And the locket, someone planted it to frame me." Brian stepped forward, his voice low. "She's telling the truth, Poirot. I was at the studio, yes, rehearsing with her, but we parted before midnight. I saw no scarf, no knife." Seth laughed bitterly. "Convenient. And my ring? Lost weeks ago, planted to pin me. This is a conspiracy, Poirot. Someone's directing us all." Poirot's gaze swept the room, landing on a neglected shelf where a dusty ledger caught his eye. He opened it, revealing Edgware's handwritten notes. Elena, script theft, silence with threats. Jane, divorce leverage,
Affairs exposed. Brian, career boost, loyalty bought. Seth, budget scams, complicit. A final entry chilled the air. Evelyn Dare, alias for insider, knows too much. Evelyn, Poirot murmured. Not a lover, but a shadow player. The phantom who orchestrated this. He turned to the group, his voice rising like a crescendo. The killer is not the scorned wife, nor the jealous lover, nor the vengeful director. It is Mademoiselle Elena de Castina, whose genius was stolen, whose script became the murder's blueprint. But she did not act alone. A second phantom, her unwitting accomplice, Brian Martin, whose double, a stuntman named Victor Klein, wore his face in the footage to confuse the timeline. Elena collapsed into a chair, her defiance crumbling. No, I wrote the script, yes, but I didn't kill. Victor, he was my cousin, desperate for work. I paid him to stage pranks, to scare Edgware into releasing my script. But murder, never. Brian roared, lunging toward her. You used me? My face? I trusted you. Curtis restrained him, cuffs gleaming. Enough. Elena, you're under arrest. And you, Martin, we'll sort your stunt doubles role downtown. Poirot held up a hand. One moment, Inspector. The sequins, the lavender, they point to Evelyn, who is not here. A final check. He produced a telegram, fresh from Curtis's team. Boarding house raided. Evelyn Dare, alias for Elena's sister deceased, identity used to blackmail Edgware. Typewriter found, matches script. Elena sobbed, her confession spilling like spilled ink. My sister, she died penniless after Edgware ruined her career. I used her name to scare him, to demand my script back. Victor helped, staging the phantom, planting clues to frame Jane and Seth. But the knife, I didn't wield it. Victor must have snapped. Poirot's eyes softened. A tragedy of vengeance, mademoiselle. Victor, your double, took your script too literally, turning fiction into blood. The sequins, his costume discarded in haste. The lavender, your sister's scent, a ghost you invoked. As Curtis cuffed Elena, Brian sank to his knees, Jane weeping beside him. Seth lit his cigarette at last, the flame illuminating his hollow cheeks. All for a script, Hollywood's madness. The projector sputtered out, the vault's silence deafening. Poirot stepped into the corridor, where dawn's first light filtered through a high window, painting the walls in hues of forgiveness. Sirens wailed outside as Victor Klein was apprehended at a downtown dive bar, his confession corroborating Elena's, a pawn driven by loyalty and desperation, wielding the dagger when threats failed. Poirot emerged into the studio lot, the air crisp with the promise of a new day. The puzzle was complete. Elena's motive, Victor's blade, the forged alibis, the planted clues. All resolved in a cascade of truth. Jane's tears were real now, her innocence proven. Brian's loyalty, though tarnished, held firm. Seth's complicity in scams, a footnote to the greater crime. The vault sealed behind them, a tomb for Hollywood's illusions. Standing beneath a palm tree, Poirot lit a final cigarette, the smoke curling like a closing credit. The city exhaled, cleansed of its darkest reel. No sequels lingered, only justice, framed in the silver nitrate of truth, a satisfying end to a tale of shadows and spotlights.